I weigh 600 pounds now. Let that sink in. 600 pounds. 1 year ago, I was 100 pounds of coiled muscle, sprinting through midnight alleyways. My heartbeat synced to the city's pulse. I could scale a fire escape in 8 seconds flat. I could chase down a purse snatcher for 6 blocks without breaking a sweat. I was Millbrook's shadow, its silent guardian. Now I need 3 minutes just to get out of bed. But here's the thing nobody tells you about transformation. Sometimes the person you become is more honest than the person you were pretending to be. Let me take you back to the night it all began. October 14th. The air tasted like rust and dead leaves. My police scanner crackled, that familiar static that always made my pulse quicken, and 3 words cut through. Henderson's Hardware. Break-in. 6 blocks. I could make it in 90 seconds. My sneakers slapped wet pavement. Cold air burned my lungs. Street lights blurred into orange streaks. This was the part I lived for, that electric moment when the world narrowed to a single point, when every muscle fiber screamed in perfect unison. Faster, faster, faster. 3 figures. Hoodies pulled low, arms stuffed with power tools. They scattered like roaches when they saw me. But the third one, the slowest one, made a fatal mistake. He went for the fence. I caught his jacket collar. Victory surged through me. And then, crack. Not the fence, my ankle. The sound was wet, wrong, like someone snapping a green branch underwater. The fence posts, rotted through, I'd learn later, gave way beneath us. I twisted mid-fall, trying to protect my head, and my left foot bent in a direction feet were never meant to bend. Pain detonated behind my eyes, white, blinding. The shoplifter scrambled over me, his elbow grinding into my ribs, and then he was gone, swallowed by the darkness I'd claimed as my own. I lay there in the mud, watching my breath crystallize in the cold air, and thought, this is it. This is how it ends. I was wrong. It wasn't an ending. It was a door. 6 weeks of bed rest. That's what the doctor ordered, her voice flat as cardboard. 6 weeks of ice packs and elevation, and absolutely no weight-bearing activity. She didn't understand. She couldn't. For 3 years, I had been a weapon. My body wasn't a thing I lived in, it was a tool I maintained. Protein bars for fuel, 4 hours of sleep, maximum. Every calorie calculated, every muscle trained for a single purpose, protect. Now, that weapon was broken, and weapons don't know how to rest. The first week was agony, not the ankle. I could handle physical pain. It was the stillness that nearly killed me. I lay on my mattress, ankle propped on pillows, listening to my scanner report crimes I couldn't stop. Every dispatch felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Robbery on 5th Street. I should be there. Assault reported near the bus station. I should be there. I should be there. I should be. The knock came on day 8. 3 soft raps. Hesitant. I almost ignored it. I ignored everything those days. But something made me hobble to the door. Mrs. Kent stood in the hallway, and the smell hit me like a freight train. Rich, savory, alive in a way my protein bars had never been. Caramelized sugar and soy sauce, and something deeper, something that reached into my chest and squeezed. "You're too thin," she said. 90 years old, 4'11", and she looked at me like I was a stray cat she'd found shivering in the rain. My grandmother's recipe, red-braised pork belly. You eat, you heal. I tried to refuse, explain my diet, my discipline, She pressed the pot into my hands and walked away. I still remember the first bite. The pork melted, actually melted on my tongue. Fat and sugar and umami flooding my senses like a dam breaking. I closed my eyes, and for one impossible moment, I forgot about the scanner, forgot about the city, forgot about the version of myself that had never once eaten anything just because it tasted good. When had I last felt pleasure? Real pleasure. Not the cold satisfaction of catching a criminal, but actual, honest, physical joy. I scraped that pot clean. Then I sat there, in my dark apartment, licking the spoon, and something cracked open inside me. Something hungry. I know what you're thinking. You've heard this story before. Guy gets injured, guy discovers food, guy balloons up while making excuses. Cue the sad violin. But here's what those stories never tell you. It doesn't feel like losing control. It feels like waking up. 115 pounds. That's what the scale said after 2 weeks of Mrs. Chen's cooking. I told myself it was water weight, inflammation, necessary fuel for healing. 140? I discovered the Thai place on Elm Street, coconut curries that made my eyes water, pad Thai glistening with oil and crushed peanuts. I ate it watching television, another first, and felt my shoulders drop from my ears for the first time in years. 170 pounds. The pizza place, the bakery, the diner with pancakes the size of my head, drowning in maple syrup that pooled in amber rivers across the plate. My vigilante costume hung in the closet. Some nights I'd stand in front of it, running my fingers across the fabric, and feel nothing. The urgency that had driven me for 3 years was fading like a radio signal losing reception. Was that wrong? Was I betraying everything I'd stood for? Or was I finally asking the question I'd been too afraid to ask? What did I stand for in the first place? 200 pounds. My pants didn't fit. I ordered new ones, size 36, then 38, then 40, and each time I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not shame, not disgust. Relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for 32 years and finally, someone had given me permission to exhale. 300 pounds arrived quietly. My bathroom scale died, couldn't handle the load, and I had to order a new one, industrial grade, the kind they use in hospitals. I stood on it in the darkness, watching the numbers climb and settle, and I waited for the horror to hit me, the self-loathing, the desperate vow to change. It never came. Instead, I felt something I'd never felt in my entire life as a vigilante. Peace. The doctor cleared me at week 8. Ankle healed perfectly. No complications. No reason, medically speaking, that I couldn't return to patrol. I need to rebuild my stamina, I said, spooning ice cream directly from the carton. Mint chocolate chip, the good stuff. I'll start training next week. 350 pounds. Next month. Definitely next month. You know the feeling, don't you? That gap between who you say you are and who you're becoming. The plans you write in notebooks that never leave the drawer. The gym memberships gathering dust. The I'll start Monday that stretches into months, then years. I wrote training schedules, meal plans, detailed color-coded programs that would return me to fighting shape in 12 weeks. They stayed in the notebook. The notebook stayed in the drawer. And every morning, the bakery down the street delivered fresh croissants, golden, flaky, still warm from the oven. And I told myself I'll start tomorrow. 500 pounds feels different than you'd think. My body had become a landscape, soft hills where hard angles used to be, a warmth I'd never known, literal warmth, my own insulation against the cold that used to bite through my vigilante costume on winter patrols. When I sat, I sank into chairs instead of perching on them like a coiled spring. For the first time in my adult life, I was comfortable. Not performing comfort, not pretending, actually genuinely comfortable in my own skin. I started cooking, really cooking, not just fueling. I discovered I had a talent for it, something my years of militant protein bar existence had never allowed me to explore. Mrs. Chen became my taste tester, sitting at my reinforced kitchen table while I plated courses like a chef at a Michelin restaurant. "You have a gift," she said one evening, sauce glistening on her chin. "This is what you were meant to do." I laughed. I was meant to protect the city. She looked at me, really looked at me, with those ancient, knowing eyes. Were you? Or did you just decide that because you didn't know what else to be? The words hit me like a gut punch. 550 pounds. 600. I hired contractors to modify my apartment. Wider doorways, reinforced floors, a bed that could hold me without groaning in protest. My world had shrunk to these rooms, and somehow, impossibly, it felt bigger than it ever had when I was sprinting through the city's veins. I found communities online, people like me, people who had discovered that bodies come in all sizes, that worth isn't measured in pounds or patrol miles. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. But the costume still hung in my closet, watching, waiting. The idea seized me on an August evening, exactly 1 year after the fall. What if I went back? Just once, just to see. I contacted a specialty tailor, a woman named Rosa who worked with clients of unusual dimensions, as she delicately put it. Together, we designed a new costume. Same black fabric, same basic shape, just bigger. 3 fittings, thousands of dollars. And when I finally pulled it on, when I looked in the mirror and saw myself, all 600 pounds of myself wrapped in that familiar darkness, something cracked open in my chest. I was still him, different, transformed, but still him. October 14th, 1 year to the day. The air tasted like rust and dead leaves, and I stepped into the night for the first time in 12 months. Every step was deliberate. My knees ached, my breath came in shallow huffs, the costume strained against my bulk, fabric pulling taut across my stomach, my thighs, my arms that had once swung like pendulums as I ran. I made it 2 blocks before I had to stop. There was a bench outside Henderson's Hardware, the same store, the same fence, now repaired with gleaming new posts. I lowered myself onto it, wood creaking beneath my weight, and sat there in the darkness, watching. A group of teenagers passed by, their laughter cutting through the night. They glanced at me, this massive figure in black, motionless as a Buddha, and their voices dropped to whispers. They hurried on. Maybe that's enough, I thought. Maybe just being visible is a kind of protection. But as the hours passed, as my joints stiffened and my back began to scream, I understood what my body had been trying to tell me for a year. The costume couldn't give me back my speed. The fabric couldn't restore my agility. I could sit here and watch, I could observe, but I could not chase, I could not intervene, I could not be what I had been. And for the first time, that was okay. I had needed to try. I had needed to know, in my bones, in my blood, in every pound of flesh I'd gained, that the old life was truly over. Now, I knew. I hung the costume in my closet one final time, smoothed the fabric with hands that had once thrown punches, that now kneaded dough and chopped vegetables and stirred sauces with patience I'd never possessed before. It would stay there, a reminder, not a failure, of transformation. I started small. An anonymous donation to the police department, new security cameras for Henderson's Hardware, meals delivered to the night shift workers who kept a city running while others slept. Then bigger, a community center in my parents' name, offering programs for at-risk youth, the same kids who might have grown up to be the shoplifters I once chased, a scholarship fund, a foundation dedicated to addressing why crime happened, not just that it happened. Money, I discovered, could accomplish what my fists never had. It could change systems, create opportunities, plant seeds that would grow long after I was gone. Less dramatic than rooftop chases, less glamorous than moonlit confrontations, but lasting, real. Mrs. Chen still comes for dinner every Sunday. She's 91 now, shrinking into herself the way old people do, but her eyes are still sharp. She still tells me when I've oversalted the broth. Last week, I made her grandmother's red-braised pork belly, my version now, refined over 100 attempts, and watched her take the first bite. Her eyes closed. A small sound escaped her lips. "This is better than hers," she whispered. "Don't tell her I said that." I laughed, served myself another portion. Outside, the city hummed its eternal song of sirens and traffic and distant laughter. "You're a good man, Marcus," she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand. "You always were. You just needed time to figure out what that meant." I think about that sometimes. The man I was, 100 pounds of coiled fury racing through the night, never stopping to ask why, never stopping to ask if there was another way. I was so certain I knew what heroism looked like. It looked like sacrifice, self-denial, a body beaten into a weapon. But maybe heroism also looks like a 600-pound man writing checks to community programs. Maybe it looks like cooking Sunday dinner for a 91-year-old woman who showed a stranger kindness when he needed it most. Maybe it looks like finally allowing yourself to take up space in this world. I weigh 600 pounds now, and I have never been more myself. We spend so much of our lives performing versions of ourselves we think the world wants to see. The disciplined soldier, the tireless protector, The person who never rests, never indulges, never takes up more space than absolutely necessary. But sometimes the bravest thing we can do is stop performing. Listen to what our bodies actually need. Allow ourselves to transform into someone we never planned to be. The costume couldn't restore what was lost, but it revealed something more important. Heroism isn't a body type. It's not a number on a scale. It's choosing every single day to make the world a little better than you found it. And sometimes the most radical act of courage is simply allowing yourself to be comfortable in your own skin.